Week 12 was another really incredible week of football in the NFL. One that I particularly will never forget, given what happened on Sunday night. Let's get into all the rest of the action in Week 12 right here on the NFL Show. All right, everybody, happy Thanksgiving, at least where I'm sitting in Australia. Welcome back to another episode of the NFL Show, our Week 12 edition of the NFL Show. Now, I have a lot of editing to do to make sure this video, plus all my Week 12 content, gets wrapped up before we get into Week 13, because that's tomorrow. Today's Thanksgiving for me. Your Thanksgiving games, if you're in America, are on Black Friday for me, so that's tomorrow. So we are trying to keep this as short as possible so we can turn around the editing really quickly. But we are still going to have some fun. And I think you're going to be really intrigued with kind of the power rankings that I've thrown up this week. Of course, I took a lot of time last week talking about quarterbacks. Today, we're going to reverse that trend and try to get through this as quickly as possible. But guys, before we get into any of that stuff, making sure you are liking, make sure you are subscribing to Hotsport. Shout out to Tone DeShields, who I've mentioned in last week's show. I got to be able to be in his call-in show this week. He got me some subscribers here by giving me a shout out, so thank you as well. So anybody, I'm going to return the favor. Anybody who's into Eagles content, especially NFL content, go to Chalk It Up Sports. Subscribe to Chalk It Up Sports with my man Tone DeShields. He makes the best content, guys, and he is one of my favorite Eagles content creators, believe me, and he's a real person, a great man as well. So thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to coming up onto your show and for you to big up my channel, so I'm just going to return that favor for you now. But let's get into all of the Week 12 stuff, and it was a fun week, especially that early window as well, and that Sunday night football. Oh, it was a very unique week. Again, I feel like I'm talking about this every week with the NFL. This is why I love this sport. I love this league, because there's always something to talk about year round, and Week 12 was no different. Let's begin here by talking about a few of the injuries that happened before we continue on. And I just want to give a big shout out to my main man, Eagles for a very long time, Brandon Graham, BG, one of the greatest Eagles of my lifetime. Whatever an amazing human being he is. And he did reveal to us at the end of that Rams-Eagles game that he will be missing the rest of the season with a torn tricep. And earlier in the year, he did say that this would be his last season. So there is a very real chance that we will never see Brandon Graham play in the NFL again, which is why I want to take this opportunity to honor him. Thank you, Brandon, for the strip sack on Tom Brady that won us a championship. Honestly, me as a sports fan, I had been waiting at that point. That's the first time that any of my real teams, I got to see them win a championship, really, since Arsenal in 2004. When they went invincible, but my NFL crowd does not really care much about that. But it was an amazing moment for me. I think that was the biggest play I will remember, outside of course, the Philly special. But that sealed the deal for us. At that point, I knew that we would become champions. And Brandon Graham is a champion at all levels. He's an amazing in the Eagles community. He always has time for the media, for everybody. He's such a down-to-earth human being, and he's an important leader in this Eagles locker room. He's always with a smile on his face. His trash talk on the field is second to none, but Brandon was having an amazing season for 36 years old. Probably his best performance of the season. The performance he put Stafford into the ground a few times when, I think, was it once or did he get 2 sacks in the day? But he was outstanding, and I didn't understand why he was out of the game, and I thought he maybe had something minor, but I didn't realize it would be this. So it's going to be sad, man. But if he was going to go out, what a way to go out on Sunday Night Football in a game like that turned out to be. So, Brandon, you're going to be missed, obviously, this season, maybe as well forever. But look, Howie Roseman has done a very, very good job always in replenishing the youth with the old guys that have left. So, other way around. You're replenishing our older players with young guys, with draft picks. And this year has been a year where our young guys have stepped up. So look, guys like Nolan Smith, guys like Josh Sweat, guys like Jalix Hunt, who you just picked up now. Those guys are going to have to step up. I see that we brought in a couple people off of the waiver wire this week. I've got to say, I've been so busy with work and stuff that I forgot to say the names of these players, but they have replaced them with some guys off the street, kind of maybe to bring up some more options of body off the bench. But Nolan Smith in particular and Josh Sweat, you guys are going to have to carry the water. And yeah, it's a sad one to see BG not play anymore. And I'm gonna wish him a speedy recovery, and hopefully the Eagles can win a Super Bowl for him, because he deserves to end his career, whether or not he's playing in the big game, but end the career with a Lombardi Trophy and as a champion. So shout out to Brandon Graham, another former Eagle, now current quarterback of the Las Vegas Raiders, Gardner Minshew. He's going to be missing for the rest of the season. He tore a ligament in his thumb, I believe, and he will be now out for the season for the Raiders, a team that probably is going to tank now anyway. Aiden O'Connell has been put back into the starting job, a starting job that he took from Gardner Minshew, by the way, before he got hurt himself. So now Aiden O'Connell has been reinstalled as the Vegas Raiders quarterback. And look, maybe they'll be looking for a new quarterback in the summer. They surely are in contention. I believe they are tied now for the worst record in the NFL. So they're going to be a possibility for them to go after a Shedeur Sanders or someone of that ilk. Although, look, I got questions on Shedeur Sanders. I'm not necessarily convinced he'll be a great NFL quarterback, but of course he comes with a lot of hype given who his father is. But enough about all of that, about rambling on. We are going to continue on with our regularly scheduled programming. And let's talk about some scores around the NFL. Some really, really fun games. We have to begin with the Cowboys beating the Commanders. Now, we've been having the Commanders on our top 10 list. They, of course, would have had an opportunity to return had they beaten Cowboys, but they did not. I said it was an easy assignment in my picks. I was wrong. And what a fun game that was. 4 touchdowns after the 2-minute warning. I've never seen anything like that. The Convontae Turpin punt return for touchdown, where he actually dropped the ball. He picks up, he goes yard all the way. Terry McLaurin, the big TD that he had. And then I believe Jaden Daniels, he got the touchdown, but they had ability to tie the ball game, and the kicker missed the extra point. And at the end of the day, they tried an onside kick. The Cowboys picked it up, returned the onside kick for a touchdown. So 4 TDs after the 2-minute warning. What an incredible game. The Cowboys, look, they've been struggling, but they had one like this. Who knows? They might go ahead and win 2 games in a row in the division because they have the Giants coming up next. But the Commanders now, they're starting to really come crashing down. That's 3 losses in a row. After me included, were really high on them. I was calling them scary. Look, I think the Commanders will rebound at some point. I believe either they're having the bye. No, no one has a bye on Thanksgiving week. They're going to have a bye next week. But I think maybe they're going to need it. Let's see what happens going forward with that. But yeah, the Commanders not going to get back on the list after a performance like that. But what a just a great game of football. There were a lot of other ones in there that we'll talk about as well. Yeah, look, I'm happy as well for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield, because I thought they've played very valiantly in some defeats against some really tough opposition like the 49ers and the Chiefs and the Ravens as well, right? But that was prior. But they've had some tough assignments in recent time, and their record hasn't been as good as I believe the performance, especially of Baker Mayfield, has been. So it was good to see them go to New York, have a really, really convincing, dominating display in New York. Obviously, I think most teams are going to do it, given that Tommy DeVito is now the starting quarterback for the Giants. But yeah, congratulations to the Buccaneers. That was a really one. And of course, the Miami Dolphins, guys, they are coming. They are coming. I had them, I think, as my fourth best team at the start of the year. I was prior to Tua's injury, a few injuries as well across the roster. They're starting to get healthy, and Tua is starting to play some great ball. The only reason I didn't have him in my top 10 list of quarterbacks when I admitted it last week was because he hasn't played enough games this season, giving me enough sample size. But the sample size that he has given now has been really, really good. So look, 4 touchdowns in that game, over another over 300 yards through the air. Great performance against the Patriots. Look, I feel like that they left it too late to start their run for them to make the playoffs, because I got some teams, all the teams ahead of them in the playoff picture, you'll see are on my top 10 list now in the AFC. And it's going to be a tough assignment, but look, it's good to see them balling and something to watch out. You know, be interesting to see if they can make it as a wild card in the AFC playoff picture. That's something we have to keep an eye on moving forward over the next 6 weeks of season. And finally, before we get into all of our lists and my picks and stuff like that, I want to talk to you about the Seattle Seahawks. Look, the Arizona Cardinals had another opportunity, especially this game happened after the Commanders lost, after the Texans lost, which we're going to talk about as well. The Cardinals, if they had won, I would have put them on my top 10 list. They did not. And look, I thought the Seahawks played really well. They've been playing well as of late. Great defensive performance by the Seahawks. And they get it done. The Seahawks win 16-9 at home. It wasn't the most sexy performance, but they got the job done, and it puts them in first place. Now that they tied the record with the Cardinals, they're both at 6-5, and of course now they've won the head-to-head. So now Seattle Seahawks now in first place in the NFC West. Of course, none of the NFC West teams make it onto my list right now, which is why I'm telling you about these results now. But yeah, that's kind of some, and those are some fun games that went on that don't even get included in my list. But let's talk about Anton's picks, shall we? Let's recap the job I did on my picks, and I'm going to do this now. I'm going to remind you guys that if you want to see Anton's picks, go and follow us on Hot Sports, TikTok and Instagram. If you look down below, you will see the handles information to get there, as well as being able to watch my YouTube videos. Therefore, you will understand. You'll look at my picks at the beginning of the week, and then you kind of know what I'm talking about here when I'm talking about Anton's picks over here on the show, which will make it a bit more fun, and you can hold me to the fire on the picks I get wrong, which aren't many, because overall this season I'm now updated 119 correct picks and 57 incorrect picks, which takes up my percentage up to 67.6%, which is now over 2/3. It's bumped me up by 0.5% this week, because I went 9-3 in my picks this week. Now, of course, we know that if you, again, go to the Instagram or go to the TikTok, I was not able to get my Anton's picks out before Thursday night football. So the snow battle between the Browns and the Steelers are not get included in my picks. It's actually the only game unaccounted for this season now in Anton's picks. So, you know, definitely I get a slap on the wrist for that. But I still have a 9-3 record. The 3 games that I lost easily all could have been wins. We just talked about that Commanders-Cowboys game. Had only the Commanders been able to hit the extra point after the touchdown and force overtime, they would have an opportunity to win that ball game. So that was a bit of a heartbreaker for me on my picks wise. Not so much for my football team, for the Eagles. I was loving it, and I was happy that the Cowboys won that game. I can't believe words like that came out of my mouth, but that's where we are in the world. The Minnesota Vikings, again, as well, they sneak by over the Chicago Bears. I got that wrong. I've been up on the Bears pick, and again, I haven't picked yet. I have to pick tonight. I'm still considering whether I should go with the Bears against the Lions, but I feel like I'm being crazy. Like, I don't know why. I just think the Bears are on the cusp of something. Look how close they came against both division rivals, against the Packers and against the Vikings. And they came out empty-handed. They had a blocked field goal. They almost beat the Packers, and then took the Vikings to overtime. What a great game that was. But I guess we'll talk about it more from the Bears' perspective now because I got it wrong. But yeah, for them to recover the onside kick and then to be able to go back and tie the ball game, that was a really, really awesome game as well. That was happening at the same time as the Cowboys Commanders game. But again, it was a pick that I got wrong on the Houston Texans. After what happened with the Cowboys week before, they looked so elite, dropped one against the Titans, but again, they also had many opportunities to win the ball game, and they just didn't. I guess just the field position, never really got the field position correct. Did the Texans as well. I'm pretty hazy on the details, but I'm pretty sure did CJ Stroud turn the ball over late on in the game when they had opportunity to take the lead as well. Pretty sure they were knocking on the door in the red zone. They never got in, or they gave the ball away on downs. I forgot. Remind me, guys, in the comment section if you're watching. I'm just a bit hazy on the details at the moment. But that has been my picks, and look, I'm pretty proud of how I've performed overall in my picks this season. It's been a very solid season, and shows you that I know this is my sport I probably know the most. Like, yeah, of all the sports that I cover, this is probably the one where I back myself a lot more. And I take gambles as well with some upset picks. Sometimes you see ones that went back against me, like taking the Bears. But what can you do? All right, so let's get into the sub-segment before the big segment, the off-the-list list. And off the list from last week is the Houston Texans. As we just mentioned, look, after what they did to the Cowboys, that made me put it on the list last week. I gotta tell you, there is a cluster, about 4 or 5 teams that every week, if they have a good performance, could catapult themselves onto the list. It's a really, really tough. It's the toughest part of making my list. Really, is that 10th spot moment, because the other 9 have been very solid at this point. But again, you can't lose to a Texans team that's been struggling all year at home and expect to stay on a top 10. Now, there were arguments still to put them, to keep them on even after that, just considering just the whole cluster of teams. But I feel like I had to reward teams that have been doing well recently and on a hot streak. And you will see when I get to my list momentarily why the team that I picked went in. But yeah, the Houston Texans are off the list here. They could be on it soon. They just need some more big performances coming up. But yeah, look, that is just not good. I feel like after a really rocket hard start to the season where the Texans were among the elite level, their performances were really good. They've really dropped off. CJ's performances himself in particular has dropped off. And of course, I know you got injuries. Stephon Diggs, I knew at that point, I said it when it happened, that I thought that would be a big moment. I know people were pointing to the Nico Collins thing that he was missing, but Nico was missing at the same time as Stephon Diggs. Nico was available for this one. So, look, they're just not clicking. Something's a bit out of sync. And as well, for them to give up 32 points to the Tennessee Titans, a team that's been struggling on offense all year, just bizarre. It's just bizarre. And so, look, yeah, they're off the list. Look, maybe I should be more harsh. More if it was the Cowboys, I would be. But, or the Commanders, like I did last week. But yeah, look, the Houston Texans are off the list. All right, shall we get into our top 10 list? And let's go through this, because this was an interesting one. I think you'll find that some of my picks that I've made are pretty interesting. Again, we are now 6 games to go in the season. This list is pretty solid. It's hard sometimes to move teams up and down regardless of of the results, because sometimes you look, this team, if they played this team, would they beat them? It's hard. So it's a bit of a balance now as we get into the stretch run of the season with this list, but it's also a more consistent, obviously, group of teams as we've noticed over the past few weeks. But shall we get into our top 10 list? Cue the NFL music. At number 10, onto the list for the very first time this season, and they've been riding high on their horses. It's the Denver Broncos, and yes, I have put the Denver Broncos in a top 10 now for the first time this season. It's a team that I questioned at the beginning of the year. I questioned whether they even get more than 2 wins overall in the season. But Bo Nix, what an incredible rookie campaign that he's been having. It's not necessarily about the statistics or the numbers necessarily, but the maturity, his ability to win. This is sort of like a Jalen Hurts factor. And he was talking about, I keep always speaking about how Jalen Hurts is elite because he knows how to win. And Bo Nix is very, very mature for rookie. Of course, he's older than the average rookie quarterback. I think he was the most NFL ready going through, even though he wasn't as rated as highly as some of the others. The Broncos have been really good. Sean Payton has done an incredible job this year, and I feel like I'm splurting all this out because I've been holding over this in over the last few weeks as the Broncos, remember they almost beat the Chiefs. They had them dead to rights, as I said, like that I include in this run of form here. And the Broncos now, 7-5, are on the top 10 list, and I think they fully deserve it. Well done. I'm just going to give them a clap to the Broncos. They've defied the odds. It was really between, I was wondering which of the Broncos or the Cardinals would make it in this weekend. When I saw some of the results shake out the way they did, I was like, this is going to be the week that one of those two teams get in. And the Cardinals were in the pole position. Had the Cardinals won, I would have put them in. They did not. They kind of choked it out, which indicative of what the Cardinals probably really are, and indicative of the Broncos. Now, I know the Broncos are playing the Raiders, and the Raiders unfortunately lost Gardner Minshew during the game, but it's not about this game in particular. It's about the Falcons game before that game when they won 38-10, or 38-6, was it? Crazy. And then the week before, they almost beat the Chiefs as well, including just them being competitive in many, many games. Bo Nix and Sean Payton combined. I remember they went on Thursday night, they beat the Saints. That was kind of my first inclination that I thought they were going to go somewhere, although they did pick them in that game because I saw it coming. But yeah, look, I was fully wrong on my preseason predictions on this team, and they are now, surprisingly, never thought I would say it this year, but in the top 10. At number 9, their division rival, the Los Angeles Chargers. Yes, they have dropped down one spot off the list after losing on Monday night to the Denver Broncos. And look, I just got to say, the Chargers starting off hot again, week after week. I think the Chargers are good. They've been a legit good team. I can't punish them enough or say bad things about them because they happen to lose to a Ravens team that I picked to win the Super Bowl, a Ravens team that's been struggling, maybe because of the opponents they play, or they had the odd game off. A Ravens team that I have to respect because obviously they're playing my team this weekend. But yeah, look, it's no slight in losing that game, and look, I had to drop them down because a few of the teams had to go up as well. So yeah, the Chargers, number 9 on the list. But guess what? Like, I gotta say, the job that Jim Harbaugh is doing with the Chargers, look, Justin Herbert's numbers are down, but as I said last week, his winning is going up. He's making better decisions. He's turning the ball over less. In fact, I believe that no quarterback has turned the ball over less this season than Justin Herbert. That is a stat. That's a crazy stat like that. And we mentioned that last week as well when we were talking about the list. In fact, that's changed now because someone who was ahead of him, Jaden Daniels, he threw 3 picks this week. So he fell off that top perch. Now it's Justin Herbert, who is the least turnover-prone quarterback in the NFL. Anyway, at number 8, the Baltimore Ravens. They have dropped one spot despite that win. And yeah, I told you, bizarre of the list. Again, I gotta say something about the Ravens. I'm gonna talk less about the performance of this week and get caught in the moment, and more talk about the performances overall in the season, which is where I've placed everyone on the lists. But look, yeah, the Baltimore Ravens, I felt like they've been more inconsistent than some of the other teams. A lot of people want to put them in that elite top 4, top 5 category. So did I for a while, but eventually just like the performances are the performances, and you can't ignore it. I feel like a lot of people do, but for me, where they are about in the cluster of teams they're put in, so like, I was talking about the Chargers, they're probably just slightly ahead, of course, they beat them head to head, but teams like a few of the other ones coming up ahead, they're similar in that bracket at the moment. Again, they won, but the record is 8-4, and still, it's not necessarily where I envision them being in the season. They have an opportunity now, hopefully they don't take it, to beat the Eagles, and that would rocket them up the list here, because that would be a big... I'm waiting for them to make a big statement. Of course, they have beaten the Buffalo Bills earlier in the year, but I'm talking about a big statement heading down the stretch of the season. And again, this one, Saquon Barkley, MVP candidate, Offensive Player of the Year candidate, Derrick Henry, Offensive Player of the Year candidate, Lamar Jackson, MVP candidate. This is a big one. This one, Eagles against Ravens. I'm so excited, looking forward to that one. Obviously, you know who I hope to win. I hope I'm not bumping the Ravens up the standings this week. I hope that they stay true to kind of form, really. But it's going to be I think it's the game I'm looking forward to the most this week. Obviously, I look forward to the Eagles the most, but if you're looking across the NFL, what matchup is the tastiest? That one is definitely one to watch. But yeah, the Baltimore Ravens at the moment are at number 8 on the list. At number 7, moving 2 spots up after absolutely eviscerating the 49ers at home, the Green Bay Packers. And yes, look, Jordan Love and the Packers soaring. Look, they squeaked one out against the Bears last week, and I said, I still moved them up that list last week, and this week, it showed you that it vindicated my decision to move them up last week, even though the game was close. The performance sometimes doesn't always tell you this. I mean, the scoreline always doesn't sometimes tell you the story of the football game. But look, I think the Packers have been really, really good. Josh Jacobs had a really great game. The defense is really coming together as well. Think about the turnaround to be able to hold down the 49ers. Brock Purdy or no Brock Purdy to 10 points with Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel, George Kittle. Great performance by the Packers. That was a really huge statement. And the 49ers, before we move on this list, man, losing record now after 11 ball games. This is the last chance saloon. Another really big game. 49ers against Bills coming up. It's the last chance saloon for them. The Bills could really provide a knockout punch to the 49ers season, because if they lose that game, I just don't see them making the playoffs at all, really. But yeah, the Packers put it on them. That was demoralizing for the Niners, and the Packers deserve their spot. That's why I feel like sometimes a statement win like that, I gotta reward you sometimes by bumping up the list, and I kind of felt like that's why the Ravens have fallen down, is because I put the Packers up, right? So the Ravens came down from 7 to 8 because I wanted to put the Packers up, and I think the Packers have been playing better football as of late than the Ravens. It's just true. It's just true. So they are number 7 on the list. At number 6, moving down 1 spot after losing on Thursday Night Football. I might have missed it out on my picks, but I'm not missing it on my power rankings. To lose to the Cleveland Browns on have won 2 games all year, I believe. No, obviously Jameis Winston's taken over now for Deshaun Watson. And look, that was a crazy game though, in the snow. And they had the chance to win. They came back and they just couldn't get it done in the end. Again, I think they got unlucky with a few penalty decisions and plays in the snow. It's one of those crazy games. And look, they just came off an emotional victory against the Ravens on a short week. I should have seen it coming. I would have picked the Steelers, by the way, but I can understand why they dropped it in the division against Cleveland Browns team has actually done very well against the Steelers as of late at home. And yeah, look, the Steelers had to be dumped out of the top 5 here because of that performance. I've been big on the Steelers all year. I'm not dropping it. Of course, they're still ahead of the Ravens, which is key. I have them top 3 in the AFC still. But look, when you lose games like that, you can't hold your position in my top 5. But That's right, it's time for our top 5 power rankings. Anton, Hotsport Power Rankings, let us go. At number 5, the Minnesota Vikings. And yes, they also squeaked one past the Bears. Notice a trend here, because I think the Bears are better than they are. Like, they're just very, very unlucky recently since the change of the coordinators. But the Vikings, they showed perseverance. They were able to take it to overtime. They didn't even win the toss. They had to make the stop, get the ball back. They ended up winning. And look, the Vikings' record at 9-2 is why they are top 5. They're the same. There's a gap here. Look, the Steelers, who are 8-3, there's a 1-game gap now. So from 5 to 1, right, all the top 5 teams have lost a maximum of 2 games. So the Minnesota Vikings have to be a top 5 team. We've been waiting for them to drop off all year. They're 11 games through and they are 9-2. Now, this is the magical time. And we're going to talk about soon when I mention another certain team where seasons can change. They really can change. Last year was a humbler for me. Now you know who I'm talking about when it comes to that. From this point on into the season, sometimes a season team can go from the bottom to the top like this, or they can go look like they're having an amazing season and come crashing down. So it's now time for really the Vikings to show us that they have the grit to hold on and to continue to win. But at the moment, they've been a top 5 best team in the NFL, undoubtedly at the moment, and they deserve their spot here at number 5. At number 4, moving one spot down, the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen. And yes, they were on a bye. Not much to say. I will only explain to you the reason why I've knocked them down. Obviously, you know who's at number 4 last week, and who's going to be coming up on the list. Look, that performance, and I guess I should talk about it in a second, but the Bills were on a bye. Some teams got surpassed them, and I want to talk about that because there's not much more to talk about with the Buffalo Bills, but they're going to have a big game this weekend against the 49ers. That's going to be a fun one to go. But they are not top 3 of the Buffalo Bills anymore. At number 3, the Philadelphia Eagles and Saquon Barkley. Special shout out to Saquon Barkley. Can we talk about that now? Woo! What an amazing game by Saquon Barkley. 255 yards on the ground, 2+ touchdowns, 2 70+ yard touchdown runs for Saquon in the second half. One that came right out of the chute in the beginning of the second half of the third quarter, and another one in the fourth quarter to wrap up the ball game, really. The big knockout punch. And he ran all over them. He got wherever he wanted. His yards after contact could have been 6th best performance on the ground all season if you just went Saquon's yards after contact in this game. And he really talked about the performance he had the week before on Thursday night against the Commanders, and he takes that one and he shows you like, nah, I got even better to go. 302 yards from scrimmage, so including his running and his receiving, 2 big TDs, and the Eagles put on a statement. They won 7 straight. That's why I bumped the Bills down. Look, the Eagles must be rewarded. Look, you notice that I'm fair on the Eagles as much as everybody else. I'm not, I had them off the list for so many single weeks. Like, I look at everybody in the exact same perspective. And from that perspective, the Eagles deserved, after that sort of performance against the Rams team, everyone was saying, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford, they got some good young players on the D-line. Watch out for the Rams, they're at home, blah, 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 blah. And I kind of felt like you guys don't understand how good this Philadelphia Eagles team is. And the Eagles felt the same way as me, and they're like, you know what, we're going to show everybody, so once and for all, the people understand what we're about. And the Eagles wear teams out. I actually didn't get to use those words either when I was on Xander or when I was with Tone about how Eagles wear teams out. We are so physical that the other team gets pounded to death by the end of it. And that is an incredibly powerful tool because it means that no matter who you play, that is going to come. That's how champions win. That's how champions win. If you could do that in a Super Bowl, even if you're playing, let's say, the Chiefs or the Bills or the Ravens or the Steelers or something like that, and you have the ability to choke them out, to wear them out and then have Saquon go off like that in a fourth quarter of the Super Bowl, that could win you Super Bowls. Now, Nick Wright said in his, I was looking at his tiers, he was saying, oh, you can't really make an argument for the Eagles being the best team in the NFL. I'm like, I think you really can. I think you really can make an argument because well, I hate spoiling my lists, but like, you know who's top two, so we'll talk about it. One of them is a dome team, so if somehow their schedule is harder down the season, they have to go to Philly in the postseason. I'm sorry, I think the Eagles have the ability to really beat them in a NFC title game if it's in Philly. And the other one has just been holding on all year. And there is an argument for the Eagles to be first. There's an argument for Saquon Barkley to be the MVP. Yeah, I'm sick and tired of anybody giving me a slight on this team because this team is special, man, and I feel it. Everyone's been saying it across all the Philly fans. It's amazing how it's grown to where the Eagles fans were ready to turn against Jalen Hurts at the beginning of the season, and now everyone's saying how they feel this gut feeling like something special is happening, similar to how it did in 2017 and maybe even in 2022 when we just fell very, very short. But yeah, the Eagles are now top 3 on the list. But at number 2, the Detroit Lions. And yes, look, I think number 2 by a touch. It's a 1-game difference actually between the Lions and the Eagles. The Eagles would have the tiebreaker at this point because they do have a better NFC record. But look, I love the nicknames, by the way. Sonic and Knuckles. By the way, I've been playing Sonic on the PlayStation recently, so it's funny. But for Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, I told you, I think it's the best 1-2 punch at running back. Now, of course, the Eagles have the best first punch, and that's in Saquon Barkley. But the best 1-2 punch, for sure, combination, talk about Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. You can put them in whatever order you want. I slightly think Gibbs is a bit better. His touchdowns are better. He's got a bigger play ability, more elusive. He's a first-round pick. But the Detroit Lions, look, I don't think it was their best performance necessarily against the Colts, but again, 10-1 is 10-1. And yeah, we're going to get into it in a second with the other team that's 10-1, but that's a record that I remember very, very clearly. Now, I think of the two teams, the Lions are the least likely to blow that, but they do have a tough schedule coming up towards the back end of the season, with the 49ers, got the Bills. They still have all the division rivals. They've got Chicago twice, including tomorrow. They've got the Packers, they've got the Vikings, and then you got, the 49ers, the Bills. It's going to be a tough end of the season. Again, at this point in time, if it's a 1-game difference. Now, this could be a defining week as well, because if the Lions take care of business and the Eagles lose to the Ravens, because I'm not ruling that out. I still haven't decided who I'm going to take in that game, because that's going to be a tough one on the road in Baltimore for the Eagles. So there's an opportunity now, maybe either Eagles find out that the Lions have lost to the Bears on Thanksgiving, because Thanksgiving always throws up some weird games, especially if you're going on the short week. It's an even shorter week. Remember Thursday Night Football, when you're playing early kickoff on Thursdays, even harder. That's a tough slot. Ask the Dallas Cowboys about that. But it's not easy. They always throw up some weird games. So again, maybe the Eagles find out the Lions lost, and they go, oh my God, and they put on a statement win against the Ravens on the road. The Eagles will be top 2 and the favorite for the NFC. But on the other hand, if the Lions take care of business on Thanksgiving and put their feet up on Sunday, and then the Eagles somehow lose to the Ravens, which is, again, very possible. It's a 50-50 toss-up. The Lions would be 2 games clear in the conference, and there would be some daylight between the two teams. So I think this is a big week in terms of determining. Now, it could be status quo. That's the other possibility, that both teams win or both teams lose. We'll have to find out. It's a lot to talk about. But the Detroit Lions are at number 2 on the list. At number 1, though, still 12 weeks into the season, they're still number 1, and argument could have been made that they could have been dropped again. But the Kansas City Chiefs are number 1 on the power rankings. And look, I wasn't that impressed against the Carolina Panthers. Like, I thought that was a game that they were going to just spank the Panthers. Panthers are not a good team, and Panthers could have easily won this ball game. They had, tied it up late on. Patrick makes that really good run at the end. But look, again, I've had this conversation a couple of weeks ago. It's either that the Chiefs are just super, they got super winning mentality. They know how to win ball games even when it's not going well, or they're hanging on by a thread, and it could be a moment until it all comes crashing down. And now I'm going to talk about it. The Eagles were 10-1 last year. The Eagles had just come off of an emotional win against the Bills and had beaten the Chiefs the week before. Those you could argue were statement wins against championship opponents. And then it came crashing down from there, and the Eagles ended up as a wild card. We were in a commanding position in the division. We fell all the way into the wild card. It was like it slipping because sometimes you put so much effort into that 10-1 that when these games are so tough and they're all so close that you just get fatigued, and all of a sudden it's just so hard, and somebody comes and knocks the shit out of you and wakes you up, and all of a sudden you have a reality check. I think the Chiefs, you're going to learn a lot about them. Is this just a thing? Because one thing I got to tell you is that the Chiefs throughout the season, many times, I feel like they always have dominant performances. I remember I can't say at their peak because they're still the back-to-back champions, but like their games where Patty Mahomes will throw for 400, 500 yards in a game, 4 or 5 TD passes, and they're just absolutely shredding teams. They haven't done it at all this year. They have not done it at all this year. Every game has come down to the wire, regardless of the opponent. This one was a shocker. Now, the question could be asked, why are they still number 1 on the power rankings? And again, I mentioned it last week. It's like, again, it comes down to the Lions and the Chiefs for me. The Eagles and the Bills are in the conversation as well. Yeah, look, you could turn around and have those two be number 1 and 2 next week. Again, so many people, I've seen everybody's power rankings. It's like some people have the Lions number 1, people have the Chiefs number 1, some people have the Bills number 1. I haven't seen anybody put the Eagles number 1, to be honest. But except for Xander, which is guess the Christ point. But anyway, look, the Chiefs. I want to see what they are going to be like, because is this getting exhausted? Remember, we were talking about at the end of a run where they've won. They've been deep and deep in the playoffs every single year. We're not even talking about the 2 Super Bowls. They've been in at least the AFC Championship game. Eventually, that can potentially come back to catch up with you. I look at the 49ers right now, but we'll see. We're going to have a lot of answers. I'm so excited now coming up for the next 6 weeks. We'll talk about that in our wrap-up. But for now, shall we recap, everyone, our top 10 list? Let's recap it. At number 1, the Kansas City Chiefs. At number 2, the Detroit Lions. At number 3, the Philadelphia Eagles. At number 4, the Buffalo Bills. At number 5, the Minnesota Vikings. At number 6, the Pittsburgh Steelers. At number 7, the Green Bay Packers. At number 8, the Baltimore Ravens. At number 9, the Los Angeles Chargers. At number 10 on your program, welcome to my list, the Denver Broncos. And that has been your top 10 list. And yes, I will say, by the way, thank you again for watching. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Enjoy the football over Thanksgiving. It's my favorite things. Sit back, down with your turkey, with your stuffing, with all your Thanksgiving meals, and also get to sit and watch the Cowboys lose. But that's not what I'm saying, but that's my motto. But yeah, enjoy what's the lineup they have? So you have the Bears against the Lions. That's going to be a fun one. The Cowboys against the Giants. I can't believe we're stuck with that. I still can't believe that the Giants ended up as the Thanksgiving game. That's a massive schedule fart. I'm just going to tell you. Like, at least give me... Maybe it lines up for the Cowboys where they, even in a season like this, they could win on Thanksgiving. I don't know. What was the other Thanksgiving game. Oh, Dolphins at the Packers tomorrow. That's going to be a fun one. Look, I got to make all these picks. I think I'm going to do a video tonight just with my Thanksgiving picks, and then I'll make a separate Anton's picks for the rest of the game. But you also got Black Friday game as well, so you game on Saturday. The Kansas City Chiefs against the Las Vegas Raiders in Kansas City. Man, I got to tell you, I'm going to say this right now. If this is a close game, I'm gonna really, unless the Lions lose, and again, the opportunity then arrives for some other teams like the Eagles or the Bills to jump up, and the Bills have a valid argument considering they've already beaten the Chiefs. If this is a close ball game with the Raiders, I might take them off the top, because the Raiders, with Aiden O'Connell in there, all the injuries, they're tanking. Like, that would be shocking. Imagine if they lose that game. I look. Let's see. As I said, to wrap up this video, the next 6 weeks of football as we head into the playoffs are going to be electric. This is the last week really until I consider us to be kind of in the final stretch in that last quarter of the season. Depends, because having 17 games makes it interesting. Usually with 16 games it was 4, but you can really consider the last quarter of the season, you can say, being 5 games, maybe. But yeah, at the end of this week, we're going to start hitting the home stretch. And these next 6 games are going to be really interesting. Again, I got so many questions. Maybe just to go through the list quickly, just to talk about my questions. The Chiefs. Why are the games all so close? Why does it seem like they're holding on against regardless of the opponent? But yet they're 10-1. Is there going to be an Eagles-like backslide or supernatural funk, as they call it, on First Things First, happening to the Chiefs? That would actually be such great television with Nick Wright. You would watch him melt down. Like, you should see how I was last year if I was on camera. Meltdown that I had from super confident to, like, didn't even think that we beat the Buccaneers when we head to the playoff game. Like, that's crazy. But is that going to be the Detroit Lions? Have a tough schedule. Are they going to hold up against tougher opponents? We're going to see that coming up as the season progresses. The Eagles. Are the Eagles legit? They have to go to the Ravens this week, right? Then we have the Steelers 2 weeks after that. What's the credentials of the Eagles? The Buffalo Bills have been really good this year. Even though weren't high them on the beginning of this year. Josh Allen performances, they just beaten the Chiefs, of course, before they went on a bye. Are the Buffalo Bills, is it their year? Can they continue that consistency? The Minnesota Vikings at number 5, are they for real? Are they contenders or are they pretenders? That's the question on the Minnesota Vikings. The question, again, on the Steelers, the offense, can it hold up? Because that defense is elite. The Ravens, can you be the championship team that I thought you'd be? The Packers, they also have questions. The Chargers, I think they're kind of about where I thought they'd be. And again, the team like the Broncos, who have been so surprising. Can Bo Nix continue that into the season? Can he take them to the playoffs? So excited. But until next time, guys, I've got to run. It was a really awesome video I've done again this week. Thank you so much. I love doing these every single week. Until next time, Anton out.